Did you know that Stoke-on-Trent once had its own airport? And it was right here in Meir Park. It was also known as Stoke-on-Trent Municipal Airport, or better known as Meir Aerodrome. This all used to be farmland, but in the early 20th century, its potential as a site for aviation activities was first recognised. The flat terrain and open fields of Meir were ideal for launching and landing aircraft. It was also a great location because it was close to industrial hubs like Stoke-on-Trent, which provided essential logistical support. And by 1910, the area saw increased activity from early aviators and flying clubs, although it was relatively undeveloped at this point. There is a nice little nod to the aerodrome on the top of Meir Tesco. You may have walked past it a million times and never noticed, but there's a little weather vane on the top with an aeroplane. With the outbreak of World War I in 1914, the strategic importance of aviation in modern warfare was quickly recognised by the British government. The aerodrome was requisitioned in 1915 and was first used for flying by the Royal Flying Corps in 1916, and they established a significant base at Meir Aerodrome due to its advantageous location. The aerodrome was developed extensively during World War I, and several temporary structures were erected, including a barracks, maintenance sheds, and some hangars for the aircraft. And there was a short time in between World War I and World War II when local flying clubs resumed their operations and took advantage of the aerodrome's improved infrastructure. And in 1929, the City Council purchased 154 acres of land in Meir for £11,850, which is about £628,000 in 2024. And it was at this time that commercial aviation began to take off globally, and Meir Aerodrome capitalised on its strategic location right in the centre of the country, and it served as a stopover point for various domestic flights. During the Second World War, Meir Aerodrome once again assumed a crucial military role. And it was helped by this factory being so close to the aerodrome. This building was the Roots Group factory in Blythebridge. This factory originally produced cars and commercial vehicles, but along with other Roots facilities, it pivoted quickly to manufacturing military equipment, and this factory made aeroplanes. There were a few planes made at this factory, but one of the main ones was the Bristol Blenheim. Another aircraft produced here were the Beaufighters, and once they'd made these, the aircraft were then towed from the factory down along this lane, and then this lane joined to the airfield for testing. They also modified Mustangs and assembled Harvards that came from America. The proximity of the factory to the airfield was a significant advantage because this allowed efficient transportation of the completed aircraft to the aerodrome, across Grindley Lane and onto the airfield where they could be quickly assembled, tested and deployed. After the war, the aerodrome was no longer needed for military purposes, but there was a reduced demand for aviation services and the commercial aviation industry was still in its infancy. At this point, the aerodrome was used by local aviation enthusiasts and small commercial operators for private flights, training, occasional events, and for gliding. But there was a lack of investment from the council, who couldn't really see the benefit of us having an airport. And during the 50s and 60s, other larger, more modern airports in the region impacted the aerodrome's ability to attract and retain commercial traffic. The infrastructure at Meir had not seen significant upgrades since the end of the Second World War. The runways, the hangars and the facilities were inadequate to meet the demands of modern aviation. They tried having shows and aviation-related events like they used to try and draw public interest, and they did attract large crowds and temporarily boosted the activity, but it was just not to be. And because of this, there was a steady decline in activity, and it ended up closing. Stoke-on-Trent City Council never really understood the economic impact that this could have brought to the region. There was no advocacy and support. The local newspapers at the time showed that the council were really against having any kind of airport here, and there was a huge missed development opportunity that the council failed to explore. And even though they owned the land, there was a neglect of maintenance and upgrades. The decision to close the aerodrome was made due to the unsustainable nature of its operations, and the last official flight was on the 16th of August 1973, when Fred Holdcroft flew a Piper Tri-Pacer carrying a Sentinel journalist to Manchester. If you look at the area now, you would have no idea that Stoke-on-Trent used to have an airport. The whole area has been redeveloped for housing, industrial and commercial. And there isn't really much trace of our aviation history. But thank you for watching, and if you love local history, don't forget to check out some of my other local history videos.